Welcome to the conference. This is AMI Inside.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Devin Wilkins, your MC, and a hearty welcome to the 18th Annual General Meeting and Conference of Guide Dog Users of Canada.
Welcome to the 2017 Guide Dog Users of Canada Annual AGM and Conference, which was held this year at the Best Western Brantford Hotel and Conference Centre in Brantford, Ontario. In this episode, we are going to the dogs. Guide dogs belong to a legally recognized group known as service dogs, and they certainly live up to their title. These dogs receive prolonged intensive training specifically designed to teach them to lead or guide people who are blind, deafblind, or partially sighted. Guide Dog Users of Canada, or GDUC, provides an outlet for those wishing to give or receive peer support, educates the public about the abilities of guide dogs, and communicates the rights of those partnered with guide dogs. The organization promotes high standards and integrity of guide dog training across Canada. Greg Thompson, president of the GDUC, walks us through the events of Day 1.
It's really the event we work very hard every year. It's a chance for our members and friends to come together to see each other socially, where they've communicated by email, face-to-face all year. So peer support, networking, things like that. In the afternoon, we tried for the first time what we're calling a vendor exhibition. So in the conference room, we had representatives from people like Paul Max Pets. We had Humanware, who are a big adaptive technology company. We had a small company out of Hamilton who sells adaptive equipment. They're called HT Consulting. We had the Ontario SPCA. We had a photographer, a company called Blue Iris Art, who was there to take portraits of people and their dogs. We had a person that was selling Scentsy products. These are your aromatic waxes and soaps and room sprays and like that. Very scent-based, very good for blind people. So it's the first time we did it, and we are hearing that the vendors want to come back next year. We don't know where we'll be, but it really worked out good. It gave our people a chance to kind of connect with them on a conversational basis and really learn about a little bit more about what these guys have to offer in terms of, what they sell and support and things like that. Guys, it's Greg Thompson. It's my pleasure to have everybody here. The event this afternoon went really well, and now it's time to do one of my favorite things, eat. And then we had an evening meal and a nice big cake in the blue and white GDUC colors. And then we went into an auction, and we had, things like gift cards from the keg. We had a hand-knitted Afghan. I donated myself a couple of hours of technical training. All kinds of really, really good stuff. Cookies, lots of gift cards and things like that. And the interim number is that we raised over $900 for the organization with just this auction alone. So a huge success. We tried it first year in London last year, and people liked it so much we decided to bring it back.
I have a very beautiful handmade Afghan. 40 from Denise? 40 going once? 45, awesome! Do I hear 50? Do I hear 50?
You're going to get one anyway. Let it go.
45 going once? 45 going twice? Sold to Myra for $45.
Before we go to break, let's meet one of these incredible dogs and his handler.
Hi, I'm Patty Ellis. I'm from Beaton, Ontario, really actually from the countryside between everything. And my dog is a golden retriever. He's a princess, and his name is Quincy, and he lives with a bunch of female labs. This is Quincy. Quincy is a 2-year-old male golden retriever from Leader Dog. Actually, he's going to be 3 in December, but he acts like a puppy. Goldens tend to do that until they're about 5. I decided that I needed to do more in the guide dog world to help educate people about guide dogs and their importance and what they need to know about dealing with a guide dog, and also to advocate for the rights of guide dogs, which have been, in some ways, in my eyes, deteriorating, as many people think that it's okay to bring their little dog into a store or whatever. They'll buy online. They'll buy a fake service dog vest or whatever, and they think there's no harm in taking their little dog into a restaurant or a store. But quite often we have little dogs who bark and upset a guide dog, or sometimes they're a dog that is out of control and they may attack a guide dog who's not really taught to defend itself.
We'll return right after this break.
AMI Inside will return. This is AMI Inside.
Welcome back to the 2017 Guide Dog Users of Canada Annual AGM and Conference. GDUC President Greg Thompson tells us about the keynote speakers that engaged and enlightened this year's audience.
In addition to our regular Guide Dog Users of Canada organizational business, resolutions, motions, things like that, we try every year to get one or two really good keynote speakers. This year we had Lucas Frank from the Seeing Eye, who gave us a really in-depth look at some of the work and exploration he's been doing into traffic and how it affects those of us that choose to partner with guide dogs to travel independently.
If the intersection timing was changing, and if it was fluid and responsive to traffic volumes, and you didn't know when the light would change, that was actually a fairly simple fix. Because if there was a walk, don't walk sign, then the question was, could you make that accessible to people who are blind? Because nobody knew when the light was going to change. It wasn't just people who were blind, the observation was not all that easy. So they started to put in walk, don't walk lights. Well, that's good for people who can see, but it's also a relatively simple fix. You make that walk, don't walk light accessible to people who are blind or visually impaired, and as they would say in England, Bob's your uncle. Since the 1970s and continuing to today, you have intersections that are essentially intelligent and can allow priority when it's demanded, which means that the predictability of crossing times for people who are blind or visually impaired becomes much more difficult. And that has been to a great extent equalized by the advent of accessible pedestrian signals that essentially make noise or vibrate and let a blind or deaf and blind person even know when the light is in their favor and they can cross the street. The other thing that's coming at increasing speed is the advent of roundabout-type intersections, which are free-flowing, and so they don't have a pattern that's easily detectable like an intersection with a traffic light, and as a result, the blind person has to make a decision about when to cross the street based upon looking for a gap in traffic or waiting for a yield, and sometimes those things are difficult to detect, and so between that and figuring out where the crossing point is, they pose a challenge to people who are blind or visually impaired. If you're going northbound and you get to a down curb, you may not be aware that you're at a roundabout. It sounds funny, but intersections sometimes sound funny. So I had one guy in Missouri who, with a dog, great guy, good traveler, super traveler, and they'd put in a roundabout on a route that he was familiar with. He didn't know there was a roundabout there, so he crossed. He ended up on the central island in the middle with traffic whirling around him all over the place, going, what the hell just happened to me? You know, and he eventually somebody came and rescued him, got him off of there, explained it to him. When I saw him, he was perfectly fine. He would just get to the corner, cross, go around the bend, and off he'd go. He was terrific. The first time was a bit of a shock. But it brings up an issue, which is how do you help blind people wayfind at roundabouts? Of course, the other thing that's coming down the pike that is going to pose us some problems is the ultra-quiet electric and hybrid cars. And the ability of blind people to cross streets is largely determined by their ability to hear vehicles. And if you can't hear the vehicles, it makes it much more challenging. And if you can't hear some vehicles, then it makes it a little intimidating because you're not sure what you're hearing and what you're not.
We always welcome our guide dog school reps. This year we had an exciting opportunity because this is the year that CNIB launched their guide dog program. So we were very pleased to give Andrew and Karen Hanlon, who are the two kind of movers and shakers in that program, to talk to our members about it, to explain the new direction for CNIB, and kind of just tell people, you know, what they have in store for us over the next few years as they get into becoming a guide dog provider.
A lot of members of the public, I'm sure everybody here already knew this, but a lot of members of the public thought that CNIB always trained guide dogs. And they never trained guide dogs. So it's an entirely new venture for CNIB. So in many ways, we are starting from scratch. We're starting right at the ground floor and building our way up, which has been really, really exciting and interesting for us. The nice thing for us is that we're able to take all our own experiences and the good and the bad and learn from them. And as Andrew said, learn from the people who are the guide dog users, who are actually the people who the service is for, and take everything that we've learned and put it together into a new, hopefully a wonderful new program.
CNIB was made aware of the fact that there are a lot of people who are waiting a very long time to get a guide dog in Canada. So we asked people about this, and it was definitely the case where people were waiting 2, 3, sometimes even longer to get a guide dog if they wanted to train in Canada. The other thing is that many Canadians, probably about 70% of Canadians who get a guide dog, train in the United States. In the early 80s and before, there wasn't any guide dog school in Canada. So people started going to the United States to get their dogs, and they got quality service, so they continued to go there. CNIB is just hoping that in time, once the program is up and running fully, that we will be able to provide more options and more dogs for people who want to train with them in Canada.
We've got 10 puppies in Toronto. We have, I think we've got the end of this month or early next year, we'll have at least 6 puppies in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and we'll have 6 in Winnipeg. That's the plan. It was supposed to be by the end of the year, but the puppy breeding, the females didn't quite play the way we wanted them to, so it's going to be early next year. That's the situation that we're in.
When we return, we will meet some more wonderful dogs and their handlers, and we'll find out the results of the election.
AMI Inside will return. This is AMI Inside.
Welcome back. Meet Theresa Eaton and her dog, Esky. Theresa has been a member of the GDUC for the past 6 years and has been a handler for many years. As Esky is her 7th guide dog, Theresa has had to go through doggy retirement many times.
This is dog number 7, so I've been through retirement and career change a few times. I've had a few dogs that have been ill, and between each dog, it seems to get progressively longer, a longer period of time between the dog retiring and going back to dog school for another dog. I think the longest I've been without a dog is 6 months. And I use it as an opportunity to strengthen my mobility skills. And so I go back to a long cane. Even though I prefer to work with a dog and I take my dog everywhere, I still own a long cane and I still use it in certain circumstances. So my skills never really fall apart. And it allows me to keep up my skills so that when my dog retires, I will be confident enough to spend some time by myself, reacquainting myself with my ability to travel without a dog, and so that when I get another dog, I will be able to accept readily the difference in dogs, because there will be a difference. There are no 2 dogs that are the same.
Bob Brown, who is the chair of the Fund Development Committee for the GDUC, introduces us to his German Shepherd.
His name is Laser, and he's a 4.5-year-old German Shepherd from Leader Dog in Michigan. He is my fourth. So my first one, he worked for almost 10 years. My second one was a German Shepherd, and she unfortunately got killed when we were hit by a car, so she worked for about 3 years. Then I had a yellow Labrador, and he worked for almost 8 years until he developed eye problems. And now I've had Laser for 3 years. You know, for some people, they prefer to use a cane because they're more comfortable with it. Some people may feel a dog will give them more freedom or more independence. But the one thing that I would advise anybody who is thinking of getting a dog for their first time is to, if they know graduates of schools, to talk to their graduates. Definitely check out their websites and talk to the schools so they can make the most informed decision on where they believe is the best place for them.
Of course, one of the main reasons for the AGM is the voting process to elect the board of directors. GDUC President Greg Thompson takes us through the process and announces the elected members of the board.
One thing we did a couple of years ago, we were having trouble with the traditional proxy vote, where a member might bring somebody else's vote and vote on that person's behalf. We decided a couple of years ago to be one of the early adopters of something called electronic voting. So what we do is in the morning in one of our AGM sessions, we have our resolutions. We talk about who is up for what position. We then take nominations from the floor. We then put that out for electronic votings for those that can't be with us in person, that they can basically go online to vote. And in terms of the AGM election, we get a tremendous amount of help from our cited volunteers. So what we'll typically do is say, okay, these are the people that are up for secretary. Please put your hand up. Who wants to vote for this person? We get a count, we do that again, and then at the end of the day, we mix those results with what we've got from electronic voting, and we are able to give our results to our membership almost instantaneously, within 15 or 20 minutes after the fact of the actual elections. Let's do all hands up for Lynn Raloff for GDUC Secretary 2017, expiring 2019. Hands up for Lynn Raloff, please, and leave them up until we get a count. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make. So I will announce your entire new board. You're stuck with me for another year. You're also equally burdened with Chris Trudell for another year as treasurer. Welcome Lynn as our new secretary. Congratulations first to Bob Brown, to Matt Dearkins, Patty Ellis, Jen Richards, Sue Navu, Leanne Hill, and the last but certainly not least goes to Jennifer Harrington.
If you are viewing this program and would like to learn more about guide dogs or are interested in becoming a member of the Guide Dog Users of Canada, Greg explains how easy it is.
One way is to go to our website, gduc.ca, and you can then click on the membership link. You can also email us at guidedogs@gduc.ca, or you can leave a message on our toll-free line, which is 1-877-285-9805. And we can talk to people, tell them what we're about, what we offer in terms of membership benefits, and of course we will encourage them to join. But the choice comes down to you as an individual, whether you wish to support us with a membership. But membership is restricted to people who are eligible, who may not yet have a guide dog but are potentially eligible, people that have one currently, or people that have worked with guide dogs in the past.
Before we wrap, we asked Greg what was so special about dogs. He seemed almost surprised by the question.
What's so special about dogs? Well, I think the fact that, they are animals, they have their own unique doggy personalities, but I think what it is for me is that they basically give their lives to us. They accept this training to learn how to guide us. And when we get partnered with them, when we graduate from our guide dog schools, we know that for the next, maybe 5 to 10 years, we've kind of got that life partner, not just for guiding us around, but for companionship, for well-being. You know, I'm sure you've all heard many times, you know, how therapeutic pets. And we kind of take our guys up kind of one level from that sort of that pet relationship and put it in, you know, the whole guiding, and it becomes a very, very special, almost an iron bond between the handler and the dog. And I went on to start university with the guide dog. You know, they've taken me on different trips all through the U.S. They helped me get to work 16 years when I was with one of the big banks. It's just, it's a partnership for, you know, that dog is a part of your life 100% for, you know, between 5 and 10 years. Try cuddling up with your cane on the couch, you know, it doesn't work.
We will now adjourn this meeting effective at 5 p.m.
As the attendees and their dogs gather around to have a group photo taken, the time has come to say goodbye to each other and this year's conference. We hope you have enjoyed this episode and stay tuned for more AMI Inside. Thanks for watching.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Producer, Arthur Presick. Narrator, Melissa Keith. Videographers, Arthur Presick, Ryland Valley. Integrated Describe Video Specialist, Emily Harding. Editors, Miriam Bakhtiar, Arthur Presick. Audio Post, Bruce Baclarian. Director Production, Kara Nye. Director Programming, AMI TV, Brian Perdue. Vice President Programming and Production, John Melville. President and CEO, David Arrington. Copyright 2017, Accessible Media Incorporated.